Hello, my name is Maya and welcome back to Piers Park Sailing Center. A few things have changed this year. Not only do I have a better haircut and camera, but we also have a COVID vaccine now. So if you see people in these videos walking around without a mask, it's because they're fully vaccinated. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, today's lesson is... That was a terrible drum roll. Today's lesson is points of sail. In my opinion, this is one of the most important videos I will ever make and you will ever watch in your sailing career. It's also a little bit hard and on the conceptual side, so don't be afraid to watch this video over and over again until you get it. Just as a reminder, a point of sail refers to how a boat is positioned in relation to the wind while sailing. In a previous video, I mentioned 3 basic points of sail. They were upwind, downwind, and across the wind. But now, we're going to learn these in more depth. There are actually 5 points of sail that have their own specific names. Let's look at this diagram of all the points of sail. It might look confusing, but we'll take it slow. We know what irons is from previous videos. It's when the bow of the boat is pointed directly into the wind. This isn't actually a point of sail because the boat isn't sailing at this point, but it is helpful to use as a reference point for the other points of sail. But the wind can cross the boat from anywhere, not just directly in front. The wind can come from the front of the boat, or the side of the boat, or the back of the boat. It can come from the other side, too. If you've taken geometry before, we can think of irons as the wind coming over the boat at 0 degrees. If the wind is coming directly from the back of the boat, this is 180 degrees. If you haven't learned about degrees yet, that's okay. But if you have, it'll be useful to keep this in mind as we learn the first point of sail. Close hauled. When a boat is angled just barely away from the wind, this is called close hauled. This is an upwind point of sail. Mathematically, close hauled is when a boat is 45 degrees away from irons. If you're not familiar with degrees, this is what a 45-degree angle looks like. Anything less than 45 degrees and you'll be in the no-go zone, which is basically irons. Some people think better in fractions though. If that's you, remember that I said the wind can come from directly behind the boat, which is 180 degrees away from irons. So if we do a little math and put 45 degrees over the possible 180 degrees, we get 1/4. Which is the same as 0.25 or 25%. Okay, if that totally confused you, just think of the wind coming from the front of the boat at an angle, and it's probably close hauled, without thinking about any of the math that I just did. Close hauled is the closest a boat can point to the wind without luffing or going into irons. Here I've been showing the boat pointing with the wind traveling over the starboard side. But the same thing can happen when the wind is on the port side of the boat. As long as the wind is coming over the bow at 45 degrees, or just very close to where the wind is coming from, this is still considered close hauled. So it's easy to tell what close hauled is on a diagram because you can actually measure 45 degrees or 1/4 of 180 degrees. But when you're actually sailing, how can you tell? Remember how there are little pieces of yarn tied to the shrouds on either side of the boat? Those are there to help you determine what point of sail you're on. Pay special attention to the windward telltale, which is the one not blocked by any sails. If you notice that the windward telltale is streaming back at you, or roughly at 45 degrees, almost straight back, then you're on a close hauled point of sail. So now that you can tell if you're on close hauled, the skipper and crew should adjust the sails accordingly. The mainsail and the jib should both be pulled in as much as possible to catch the wind. This is called trimming the sails. You know your sail trim is good when the sails stop luffing, like this. Now that we've done close hauled, let's move on to close reach. Close reach is the second point of sail closest to the wind, about 60 to 70 degrees away from irons. Close reach is also an upwind point of sail. This means that the wind is coming more over the side of the boat rather than right from the front. Again, if you like fractions more, this would be about 60 over the total 180 degrees the wind can come from. So about a third of the way to 180 degrees. And this is true if the wind is coming over the starboard or port side, as long as the angle is the same. On the water, you can tell if you're on a close reach because the telltale won't be streaming right back at you anymore. It'll be more off to the side compared to close hauled, again about 60 to 70 degrees away from irons. Because the wind is coming from the side of your boat, but still a little over the bow, the skipper needs to let out the mainsail a little more to catch the wind, about a fourth to a third of the way out, roughly. The crew also needs to let out the jib a little. You'll be able to tell if you have proper sail trim by checking for luffing like I mentioned before. Some people like to let out their sails until they start luffing, and then pull them in a little so they can be sure that their sail isn't trimmed too tight. After a while you won't need to do this, but it's good practice at first. The next point of sail is called a beam reach. This is when the wind is coming directly across the side of the boat, making a 90-degree perpendicular angle with the boat. In the basic points of sail video from before, this was called across the wind. When you're on a boat, you'll know if you're on a beam reach if the windward telltale is blowing straight across the boat like this. You might also feel your boat pick up speed because this is the fastest point of sail. When you're sailing on a beam reach, the sail should be let out even more, just like before. The jib and mainsail should be let out about halfway. Right after beam reach comes broad reach. Now we're really starting to sail downwind. On this diagram, you can see that the wind is coming from almost behind the boat, but not quite. Here the wind is coming sort of over the stern at about 135 degrees. On the boat, the telltales will be pointing towards the bow of the boat since the wind is coming from behind at an angle. So, any guesses to how we should trim our sails? Yep, just like the pattern we followed before. When the wind angle gets greater or comes from the stern, we let out the sails even more. The sails should be about 75% or 3/4 of the way out to have proper sail trim. The last point of sail is called a run. This is when the wind is coming directly from the stern of the boat, the full 180 degrees. On the water, the telltales will be pointing straight at the bow. Because of this, you want to let out the sails all the way, 100% out, to catch as much wind as possible. Those are all the main points of sail. Here's a full diagram of what the points of sail look like all together. Definitely watch this video again because it'll make much more sense the second time. Points of sail can be a little difficult at first, so if you get this, you're in good shape. Make sure you stick around for the next Science of Sailing video. Bye!